Welcome to another episode of Mastering Terror. In this episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at fear and life force. By now, you already know the skills and traits that are related to fear and are probably running Rune of Nightmare. If you are new to playing Terrormancer, you probably want to go back and start on video 1. Now let's load up some arena footage and take a look at some of the ways I like to use fear. In this situation, I'm trying to save an ally from what could potentially be a group stomp. That's a stomp where you're not sure which enemy is actually going to try and perform the stomp, so it can be very hard to try and crowd control or counter that. So setting up this first with a Fleshworm or a Spectral Walk is optimal, but if they are on cooldown, remember the Fear Mark will also give you a little bit of protection too, and in my opinion, I'd rather have my teammate on his feet than trying to fight this mob alone. Now, I can't take all the credit for this because the Guardian did save his Wave of Light for just the right minute, but we did set this up with a Reaper's Mark. That's the sound of impending death. So when someone has the high ground on you and has big burst potential like an Ellie or a Ranger or a Power Necro, you may not have line of sight on them even if they do on you, just given the way line of sight works in this game. In this situation, get to your staff because your marks can be targeted vertically, and in this case, getting the fear on the Ranger with the Reaper's Mark really turned this fight to our advantage. A great way to use fear offensively is in a situation like this, where you've got a Ranger up on his perch, raining hell down on your teammates. Follow him up, cast a fear, knock him off into your team where he can take some damage.
Windmill capture.
Here's another example of how you can use your Reaper's Mark and your other marks vertically. If someone's standing in a position that you want to be in, Reaper's Mark or Doom, simple enough. This is an example of why you always want to have some life force in reserve. When all else fails, you can always cast a Doom. It's on a fairly short cooldown, and here you see I used it at the last second to keep this enemy from stomping my ally. And that allowed me to ultimately make the decision to pop Plague, to gain stability, down the Necro, leave Plague, and get off the res for my ally. And again, this goes back to video 1 about me talking about don't hesitate to burn Plague and then cancel it if that's the best choice you can make. And for me, it's better to always have your teammate up than to be fighting alone. One of the things about Doom I feel is often overlooked that is just so awesome is you can actually choose the direction you want the enemy to be feared in. This is mainly controlled by the direction you are facing when you cast Doom, but the enemy position does also factor in a little bit, so this does take some practice to get down, and it can be especially hard to pull off in the heat of battle. But once you do, you'll find that you can use your Doom in combination with your environment for some big advantages. Another trick here is if Dark Path is in flight when you lose line of sight, most of the time it will still connect on the other end and teleport you to your enemy, giving the bleed and the chill, and also ripping the boons too, if you're taking Path of Corruption. This stall tactic actually kept them off the trebuchet until the thief on my team rotated over and took it out for me, so it worked out really well. So this is fairly simple, but there are a couple little tricks here. You all know life force is generated by Necrotic Grasp and Feast of Corruption mainly. However, there are two traits in this build that actually help us generate life force. The first is Soul Comprehension. And the second that increases our life force generation is the trait Gluttony. Most people won't have issues with life force as long as they manage their Death Shroud well. From our Scepter Dagger set, Feast of Corruption does generate life force. We've already covered this. Just try and have as many conditions up as possible when you use it. On our staff set, Necrotic Grasp is our ability that generates life force, and Necrotic Grasp has a piercing ability which will hit 5 targets. Now piercing, if you're not familiar with it, is targets in a line. So if you can get in position to where you're lining up multiple enemies, and this can count on turrets, pets, minions, players, it doesn't matter, even clones and phantasms, you're hitting multiple enemies on one cast, you're going to be maximizing your life force and using minimal time casting Necrotic Grasp, as one Necrotic Grasp cast through 3 enemies will give you the exact same amount of life force as casting it 3 times on a single target. Good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, that's something else. With that, let's load up some arena footage.
Captured the quarry.
With that, I am going to conclude this episode of Mastering Terror. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you found some useful information here. Look for the final video in the Mastering Terror series to be released at the end of this month, as well as some more details about the Necromancer t-shirt giveaway. Is it just me, or does the icon for fear bear a striking resemblance to Diglett? See you guys next time.